Hello, hello, and welcome to Teacher Talk Tuesday. Today we are going to discuss 4 books that you can read out loud to your class that you might actually enjoy. The first book we are going to talk about is Wonder. Wonder is about a young boy named August who has to overcome a lot of challenges in his life. He's had to have a lot of surgeries, which led to him having a facial deformity. And because of that, he was homeschooled. Well, eventually he goes into a private school in 5th grade. Once he enters that private school, he's bullied. He has to overcome a lot of issues in his own life as well, and he's maturing. There is a part in the book where he loses his dog. This is a great opportunity for teachers to discuss any type of grief or loss that students have experienced. Another skill that students can learn from this book is point of view and perspective. The book is not only written in the main character's point of view, but it is also written in other characters' points of views as well, such as his sisters. So this is a great way to also teach point of view and how point of view can be quite different depending on who's looking at things. This gives us an opportunity as teachers to really discuss how point of view can differ depending on the person. Once I have finished reading Wonder, I always go ahead and let my students watch the movie. It's a great time to really discuss how the book is different from a movie and also to bring students together to once again talk about Wonder. So great book. The second book I'm going to talk about is Land of Stories. Land of Stories is great for readers 4th through 6th grade. If you pick any book from my recommendations, I highly suggest going with Land of Stories. I can't quite put my finger on it, but honestly, there's something so special about Land of Stories. Every year I have read Land of Stories to my class. We do a blind vote where students can either vote to read a different book or read Land of Stories Book 2. Every year my students vote to read Land of Stories Book 2. I have read this book 5 years in a row. My first year teaching, I was recommended Land of Stories by a 4th grade teacher, and she said the same thing. There's just something special about this book. And at first I didn't believe her, but years later, I will admit there is something really special about it. The story is about Alex and Connor, who are twins, and they get trapped in the Land of Stories. Now, throughout this time, they are also dealing with the loss of their father, and there's a lot of family secrets and twists and turns along the way. As a teacher, I really enjoy the humor in this book as well. My 5th graders got the humor a little bit better than my 4th graders, but it's still very age appropriate. My students also can connect with one of the characters in the book, who is Connor, because he's a male boy who's really not that interested in school and he's kind of quirky. So the author is also great at connecting all of these fairy tales together, and he also changes them a little bit in a very unique way. So if you take any book away, definitely Land of Stories. The third book I would recommend is Island of the Blue Dolphins, and I would say this is more appropriate for 5th and 6th grade. When I was in 6th grade, my teacher read out Island of the Blue Dolphins, and I actually really enjoyed it. And I read this the last year I taught with my 5th grade book club. My students really enjoyed it and also really enjoyed discussing different parts of Island of the Blue Dolphins. The book is about a young girl who gets stuck on an island and has to find ways to survive. And you think that may sound boring, but it really isn't. There's lots of twists and turns and a lot of challenges that this girl has to face to be able to survive on the island. So I do recommend Island of the Blue Dolphins. It's not too long of a book, which is also great, so you can get through it fairly quickly. The 4th book and final book I recommend is Frindle. I would say Frindle is appropriate for ages 4th through 6th grade. Frindle is about a boy who decides that he's going to change the name of pencil to Frindle, and so he starts referring to it constantly throughout the book. The funny part of this book is that his teacher is very strict about definitions and vocabulary. So the idea that he is calling a pen Frindle instead of just calling it pen really bothers his teachers. So students find this really funny. One thing I like about Frindle is it's not a very heavy book. It's not a lot of pages, so you can get through it fairly quickly. There's a lot of lessons in this book as well, such as if you really wanted to, you could change the name of something and everyone will follow along if you push it hard enough. So it's a really funny book. It doesn't take long to get through. So if you want to use it at the beginning of the year to introduce reading out loud, or even at the end of the year when you don't have a lot of time, it's a really great book to start or end with. So those are my 4 recommendations for read out loud books that you might actually like. In the comments, let me know, what read out loud books do you like to read to your class and why? If you haven't already, check out my video on identifying theme. This is a great way for students to learn how to find theme in any story. In that video, there is also a free graphic organizer and lesson plan that goes along with it. So if you have a sub or you just need a reading period off, then I highly suggest playing that lesson for your class. I will see you in the next Teacher Talk Tuesday. Bye.